Hello, everybody. It's Bandor Tyrell, and I'm back again to do another introduction to building video. This one we're going to be doing in Blender, and we're going to be building a deck to go with this new sunken fire pit. So this is a, oops, I don't want to do that. This is a sunken fire pit that I'm building. It's based on a prefab design from Surge and Tau Dreamscape. So I added the fire, and I added my hose engine to this. So this is going to have 6 seats for 6 people. I'm going to be doing the texturing on this. I haven't done it yet, but I looked at this, and so the outside of this is transparent, so you can see inside of it, right? It's made to be put into the ground. So if I were to cut a hole in my floor here, which I'm not going to do, I could take this and lower it down, right? And you would basically lower it down into the ground until you were just like right there. And then the green area would be gone, right? Well, I should probably mute my chat. Let me do that. Online status unavailable. There we go. Somebody was reporting that there's a typo in one of my product information. That's not surprising. Okay, so, but let's say you're in a situation where you can't really bury this in the ground. Well, you don't want this transparent stuff showing, so it doesn't have sidewalls. And even if you were to put this in the real ground, like linden ground, right? It's very difficult to get the terrain, to terraform that terrain so that it comes right up to the edge. Even if you use a land leveler, it's not easy to do, right? So you're going to end up with a bunch of sand overflowing this or something, right? So you want to have some kind of decking around this to extend it so that it's easier to get the ground to line up with it, but also to have a surface to walk on. If you're burying it in the floor, it's not a big deal. You can do that yourself, but maybe you're not going to bury it and you want it to be like on a raised platform. Then having some kind of decking around this would be really good. So I threw this together yesterday, and made this deck for it. So it's got a frame around the outside. So there's a frame here all the way around it, and then there's decking here. So you can't see it that well, but I have a bunch of different texture options here. So let's go up and I'll change the frame and you can see it better. Let's do ebony on that, so it's really pronounced. Okay, there you can see. Now you can see there's a frame, goes all the way around, and then there's the decking. And so I have a bunch of different options for decking as well. Like this is cedar, so here's one. This doesn't have planks. This does have planks. These are vertical planks here on the side, and they're, of course, not vertical on the side. And so there's some things about this that I'm not real necessarily thrilled with. So like I have the textures going one way here and a different way here, which looks like it was built that way, but it might look better if these all flowed the same way and were kind of seamless. So that's a little challenging to do, but we're going to try and make it look a little bit more that way. The sides are pretty good. They look pretty decent. Now here's the kind of cool part. I don't have any physics in this. Stand up and I'll show you. There's no physics in this. Oh, I'm clicking on the wrong thing. Okay, what is going on? There we go. My avatar can now move. So the pit from Surge is Phantom, but I didn't want my deck to be Phantom because I want you to be able to walk on it, right? So here you can see you can actually walk on the deck, walk around it. But if you go into the middle, you fall through, which is what you want. You don't want this to not let you fall through, so you can't step down into it, right? You can't do that. To do that, you normally have to do your mesh, and you have to have a physics mesh. Well, I was able to do this without a physics mesh by having this in multiple pieces. So, gosh darn it, I keep grabbing the wrong screen. So, basically what I've got here is I actually split this up into 4 pieces. So there's a long piece here, a long piece there, and then 2 short pieces on the sides. And by doing that, I don't need physics for the center. So I could have done physics, but this was just easier for me. Gosh darn it. Sorry. This was just easier. So some things you need to realize. So this lip here, this kind of trim piece, is like a lip. It overhangs. So it comes out above the decking. So you need a hole in your deck that fits somewhere around the middle of this piece of wood trim, right? So if you edit and turn on edit linked and then just click on the outside piece, you can see the dimensions of this piece. It's 5.4 by 5.6, which is the outer side. So if I were to go 5.3 by 5.4, it would definitely be inside that for the size of this hole. So we're going to do 5.3 by 5.4. It's not actually square. It's a little off. And then for the deck, this is 10 by 10. So the 3 numbers that we need to realize are 10. So this is 10 by 10 and 5.3 by 5.4. So it's a 10 by 10 and a 5.3 by 5.4 meters. All right. So let's go ahead and jump into Blender. Whoa. There we go. All right, so here's the latest Blender. This is 3.6. And I don't have anything in here, but let's go ahead and let's flip back over and check the height of this box. I forgot what it was. I think it's 1.25. No, I remember. It's 1.25. And I checked that by how I did that. I built a little box, and then I just put it here, and then figured out where it comes to be underneath that, and it was about 1.25 meters. So that's the number we're going to go with, right? So there's another number, 1.25. So the outside cube is 10 by 10 by 1.25. So let's go ahead and do that and make a Shift A. And we're going to pick Mesh, and then we're going to do Cube. Then we'll come over to this little triangle here, pop it open. And then down here on dimensions, it gives us our X, Y, and Z dimensions. And we'll go ahead and put 10, 10, and 1.25. Okay, so there's the cube for the outside piece. Now we're going to put the cube in the middle, and we wanted another cube, so we're going to do Shift A. Now let's make sure we're not editing that one. Shift A, cube, and this one we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to set it to 5.3 by 5.4, and then we want to make sure that it's taller than the other cube that we have. So it sticks out the bottom and the top. The reason we want that is because we're going to use this as a hole punch. We're going to punch a hole in this cube that's this size, and that's how we're going to get the hole. To do that, we go back to our original cube, and we have to apply all of our transforms. So we're going to do Control A to do that, and then we're going to apply all transforms. And then when you apply all transforms, you have to right click it, set origin, and set the origin to geometry. That's just something you get used to doing. Whenever you do your apply of your transforms, you always set the origin to geometry. All right, so that one's ready now. I'm going to go to the modifiers tab over here, which is the monkey wrench tool, or the spanner. Click on that, and we're going to do an add Boolean. Okay, make sure your Boolean is set to difference, and operand type is object, and then you're going to click the little eyedropper, then click on the object that you want to be your hole punch, which is, in this case, it's this taller cube. So we click the eyedropper on that, and now you can see that there's a line in the middle, which is our hole, but it hasn't applied it to our geometry yet. So if I were to go into edit mode, the hole's not there, right? So then I could just click this and do apply. And now if I hide this, you can see I have a hole. And if I edit my geometry, it did it. Now, when you do this, you'll notice that it triangulated parts of our geometry here on the surface. So this geometry is a polygon, and you can see that it put a diagonal line from here to here and from here to here. That introduces some challenges for me now. So if I want to add some edge loops to this, look what happens when I try to add an edge loop by doing Control R. Now my edge loops don't go across the whole thing. They only go across, it does if I'm doing it here, but only on this section. So this just makes things way more difficult for me to do. So the result is I don't want to make my hole that way. That's an easy way to make a hole, but for me, it's not going to work. So let's go ahead and back out of this by doing Control Z until I have my cubes back. Okay, just to make sure, let's hide that. I still have my hole, so I didn't undo far enough. Okay, there it is. I can just cancel that. And now if I hide that cube, I don't have a hole anymore. Okay, so I'm good now. So instead of doing the Boolean to make the hole, what I want to do is I'm just gonna cut this up into some sections, and then I'll just delete faces. So we'll use this as a reference or a guide, and then we'll go to, let's do 3. So hit 3 on your number pad, puts it in your right orthographic view. Then we'll zoom in using the mouse wheel. And now I want to add some edge loops, and I want an edge loop here where this line is, and an edge loop where this line is. So if I click on my object and then hit tab to go into object mode or to edit mode, then I'm going to do Control R to add an edge loop. And then move my cursor close to this edge, and it will put my single edge loop here. It hasn't placed it yet. It's just showing me that's where it's going to place it. I have to actually click to place it. Well, I'm not going to click. I want to add 2 edge loops instead of 1. So I'm going to scroll my mouse wheel up or hit the number 2. I'm going to scroll my mouse wheel up. Now I have 2. If I click once, it will set them, but they'll still be selected. Okay, so now they've been set, but the position of them is still moving. Well, I don't want it to move, so I'll just hit the right mouse button. So that's the thing about edge loops that can be a little confusing to people, is that it's a multi-step process. You have to click multiple times, and you can do different things at different steps. So let's go back and I'll show you that again. All right, so here we have no edge loops. I'm going to move the camera up here a little bit so you can see it better. So let's go ahead and we'll do Control R to add an edge loop. I'm just going to do 1 this time so you can see. So right now I can move my cursor. This is just saying, where do you want to put the edge loop? So if I move my cursor here, it's going to go that way. Move it over here, it's going to go this way. So I want it to go this way. Now I want more than 1, so I can scroll my wheel and it'll add as many as I want. But I only want 2, so I need 2. You can also put in a number, so if I just hit 2, it'll do 2. But if I say 2 again, it's 22. I can then hit the backspace and I go back to 2. So you have a lot of control over how many you can put. Now it will evenly distribute them across the edge that you're actually slicing. So in this case, it's this edge that goes from here to here. So when I first do it, it's going to put it right in the middle. This is a good way to find the middle of something without really having to try. You just find the edge, you do it, add an edge loop, and it will tell you where the middle is. So, okay, that's going to put it right down the middle. Well, I don't want it in the middle. I want 2 of them, and I want them at the edge of that cube, right? So I'm going to do 2. Well, if I do 2, now if I move my cursor, it's still in the tell me where you want to put it mode. So I have to actually click one time. Now it's placed the two edge loops, but they're still selected and it's in move mode. So it's like I selected them and hit G. Well, actually, in this case, it would be like I selected them and hit G and then the Y-axis because it's restricted to just moving on the Y-axis. So if I actually move my cursor now, it moves where it's going to put them. But the original location is still there. You can see it's kind of like right there is where it's at because it's marking it. But if I were to click now, it's going to place them where they're at right now when I click. But if you say, well, I didn't want to move them, I accidentally bumped my mouse. Well, you can hit the right mouse button and it will cancel the move and put them back where they were originally. Or you can hit escape. And if I hit escape, it's the same thing as doing right clicking at that point. So now it's placed the two edge loops, but it put them here. Well, that's not where I want them. So I can select the two edge loops, and to select them, you hold down the Alt key and click on one of these edges, and it's going to select the entire edge loop. Make sure I'm in edge mode. Okay, there we are. I was in vertex mode. So now I'm in edge mode by hitting 2. So now I'm in edge mode, and you can see it selected the whole edge loop. I can also come over here and do Alt and left click on one of these edges and it'll select that loop. Well, if I want both, hold down the Alt key and the Shift key and then hit the second one. So now I have them both selected. Okay, well, how do I get them to line up with the edge of this? Well, you can scale these two edges and then scale them larger and they'll spread out. If you scale them smaller, they'll get closer together and they'll retain their position left and right. So that's a good way to make them expand the size evenly on both sides of the center. So let's just try that. If I do S and then to scale, and then Y to restrict it to the Y-axis, which is the green line going through the middle, because I want it to go that way. And then if I pull, you'll see they actually spread out. And if I push in, they get smaller. Well, I want to pull them out until I get them just right there. Okay, well, that looks close, but I'm not 100% sure. So let's go to the side view and zoom in and position that. And you can see that's pretty darn close. It's a little bit outside. So let's just do S again, Y, then pull it in just a little bit. Okay, right there. And then I click twice. All right, now I have my edge loops there. So you can see I have an edge loop that's on this side. Now I want to do the same thing over here because I want to create a box in the middle that's the same size as this. So we'll rotate our view. I'm going to do Control R. All right. I have my video, my OBS software is on my main screen, which I'm looking at while I'm working, but I'm actually working on a screen over to the right. So what happens is I keep doing things on the main screen, which it doesn't recognize. So I have to make sure I'm looking at the right. Okay, so go ahead and do Control R. All right, Control R to add an edge loop. Then scroll up to do 2. Click one time to place them. I don't want to move them, so I'm going to right click. And then I'm going to scale them on the X-axis. First time it was the Y-axis, this time it's the X-axis, which is the red one. Pull them out until they're just about there. And then if I want to make sure I can look at it from the side view, but instead of 3, I'm going to do a 1, which is the front orthographic view. And that looks pretty close. Okay, so I'm just going to accept that by left clicking. Boom. So now they're there. So now I've added 2 edge loops. So I can go ahead and go back to object mode, select this. I don't need it anymore, so I can delete it. Okay, it's gone. Now I can go into this, and then we're going to edit it, and we'll just go to face mode, which is 3 on the keyboard, 3, and then select that face, go underneath it and select the one on the bottom, and then hit delete, and then faces, and now they're gone. But I want to put a wall. Okay, I'm going to delete this later. You don't want to have all these extra faces because it adds polygons and it makes your LI go up. But while you're working on it, you need to have it as a full box because otherwise some of the things that we're going to try to do won't work right. Like beveling, it won't be able to bevel this edge because there's no side. So let's go ahead and we're going to put these faces in to make it have walls on the inside. And to do that, you go to edge mode, which is 2. So hit 2 on the keyboard. Then we're going to select this edge and the edge corresponding on the top, and then hit F to fill them, and it creates a face between them. And do the same thing on the side over here. Make sure you have the right 2 ones selected, or it'll create a face in a very strange way. Like, say, for example, I click back there and here, and then I do fill. It actually creates a panel at the diagonal, and that's not what I want. So hit Control Z to get out of that. Click over here to deselect, select the faces that I want, and hit F. All right, now let's rotate it around. Do the same thing here. And the last one is this one, and we'll do that. So now I've got, go back to object mode by hitting tab. Now I have this looking thing. Now I could just say, hey, that's good enough, and I'm done. You know, make it look like concrete and take it into Second Life. Okay, well, that's cool, but that's not really what I want. So if I really think about what I want a deck that can have sides, but doesn't necessarily have to have sides. So in order for that, let me think about what I want. I want to have, I'm thinking about doing it differently than I did before. So if I add edge loop here, oops, what did I just do? Okay, I'm going to add an edge loop, Control R. I'm going to put it over here, and then let's just look at it from the side. Oops. So what I did was I hit 3, which said to make that edge loop, I actually don't know what it did, but okay, so that wasn't what I wanted. So I just hit right mouse to get out of that. Okay, so I have my edge loop here. That's not where I want it, but let's go look at it from the side. I want it to be like one board's, like a normal 2x4 distance from the top. So let's select that edge loop by hitting the Alt key and left clicking on it. And then we're going to do G and Z. G for move, Z for the Z axis, and we're going to move it up to say there. Okay. So now I have, this is the top, and this is going to be the bottom. If I want it to look uniform, I should probably do the same thing at the bottom, right? So let's undo that. Okay. And we'll go back to the side view by hitting 3. Let's just go ahead and add 2 edge loops this time. By scrolling, Control R for edge loop, then scroll up 1 time, click 1 time, and then just hit S and then Z and pull. And see, now what it's doing is it's putting 2 of them and it's spreading them out evenly. So the distance from the top to the line and the bottom to the line is the same. And that way I can get them to be how I want. So I just have to get that. I'm eyeballing it. I'm not that precise. I don't really care. I just eyeball things. So there we go. So now I have top section, a bottom section, and a middle section. Okay? But I also want to have posts at the corners. I need a post here and a post there on each of the 4 corners. Well, how am I going to get a post here? Well, I can get a post here by putting an edge loop, just like I did. Put an edge loop that goes here and here. So again, let's go back to the side view 3. We're going to put in an edge loop this time, going vertically on this section. So we're going to come over here and do Control R here. I only need 1 of them, but I know I'm going to want to put one on the other end. And since the edge is split, I can't do them at one time. So I'm going to go ahead and just left click here and set this edge loop right in the middle. Okay, so I set that edge loop here. Let's do the same thing over here. Go ahead and put an edge loop here. And just click twice to set it, click 3 times to set it where it's at. Okay, now let's select both of those edge loops. So I'm going to do Alt, left click, Shift, left click. Now I've got both of them selected. And I don't need to look at both of them because I know they're going to go the same. And we're going to do Scale, S, on the Y-axis, and we're going to pull that out until it's the width of our post, which is about... I'm looking up here, and I want to get it just about the one little width. So the reason I did one is because I want to do the same thing on the other side, and I need a reference to get it to be the same size. Okay. Ooh. All right, so that's that. Let's go over to the other side with the 1 on the numeric keypad. So hit a 1 on the numeric keypad. Now I'm here. Let's do the same thing. We're going to add an edge loop here. 3 clicks. 1, 2, 3. Add it over here. Control R. 3 clicks. 1, 2, 3. Now, Alt, left click, Shift, Alt, left click, and we have both of them selected. We're going to zoom into this one, and we're going to do Scale on the X-axis. You can tell it's the X-axis because you see the red line sticking into it. That's the direction we want to go in. So Scale S, then restrict it to the X-axis and pull until it gets to there, and that'll be the same size. Now let's look at what we've got. Okay, so I've got a whole bunch of lines drawn in here, but I haven't cut anything up yet, right? So if I were to do it like I did before, ironically, it looks exactly like I did before. So, except I added a frame at the bottom. So this could be the frame, and this and this and this are the decking, right? So how can I do this? Well, it's very simple. I can just take all these side panels and the top panel and just extrude them down into it just a little bit. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. We're going to go to 3 on the keyboard, hit 3 to go, or you can come up here and click. This is vertex, this is edge, this is face, right? And this is 1, 2, 3. So if I hit 1, that's vertex mode, 2 is edge mode, and 3 is face mode, or you can just click this. So face mode, select the faces. I'm not going to do this to the bottom because I'm going to delete all the faces off the bottom when I'm done, because the bottom will never show, so you don't need those faces. And then hit E to extrude and just pull that down a little bit. No. Yeah, see, it's the center there is not right. It's not working right. So let's not extrude. So I hit right click to get out of that. All right, so think about why to do that. Maybe I need to apply my transforms. Alt A, all transform, set origin drew. Let me try it one more time. Ah. And if it doesn't work, then I'm going to go the other way. Yeah, it still does it, so we're not going to do that. So we'll do it the other way. The other way is you take all the ones on top of the frame, select all of those, and this probably makes more sense anyway. The reason this makes more sense is because, remember, I set the height at 1.25 meters. Well, I want this surface to be 1.25 meters. And if I were to extrude it down, it wouldn't be. But these can be higher. So we're going to extrude this up. So hit E to extrude and then pull up. Just a little bit, like that far. Okay. So now that is done. Now I can go in and I'm going to extrude these. By hitting E, and we're going to extrude that in just a wee bit. Like that. Do the same thing on this side. Extrude that in just a little bit. Like, again, I'm just eyeballing it. And extrude that. In a bit. And then extrude this in. That's probably thicker than some of the other ones, but that's okay. If you wanted to be precise, you could be. I'm not. Okay. Now you could say, hey, what about this inner part? Well, that's going to be covered. That's going to be covered by the hot tub, so I don't need to put any boards there. All right, so our mesh is done. We just made our mesh. Now, I could bevel the edges on this, but I'm going to simplify this a little bit. So I have these lines in here. Well, I don't really want them. So I'm going to select this edge loop. Oops, got to go back to edge mode. Let me clarify what I mean. So there's some extra edges in here that I don't need anymore. I needed them at the time. They got created when I did some extruding, but I don't need them as I go forward. So they're going to just add complexity to the model that doesn't need to be there. It makes things a little more difficult to do. So let's go ahead and get rid of them. And what it is you can see this one edge loop that goes all the way around right here where I extruded up the frame. So we're going to get rid of that. And so to do that, make sure we're in edge mode, 2. And then we're going to Alt, and we're going to Alt left click, hello, Alt left click that edge, and then we're going to hit delete. And then when the little panel pops up, we're going to pick dissolve edges. And that gets rid of it. Okay, so as it stands right now, this mesh is pretty much done, but we're going to add some details to it, and then we're also going to split it up into 4 pieces like I talked about before, and we'll do that in the next video. So the next video we're going to work on splitting this up and adding some final touches to it, and then I'm not sure if it'll be in that video or the next video. We'll do the UV mapping and get it all finalized and ready to go into Second Life. So anyway, that's the end of this video. I appreciate you paying attention, and check back for part 2, which will continue our journey to making a finished product. This is Bandor Tyrell, and I'll talk to you guys next time.